Hello, Year 7, this is Mr. Azapadi with another RE lesson on this video. This is going to be our second lesson on Sikhism, the religion of Sikhism. So you've done one lesson already where you looked at some of the basic teachings of Sikhism, some of the key ideas. And today, for the next few lessons, actually, we're going to look a little bit at the history of Sikhism, how it started and some of the key events in its history. But while we're doing that, we'll also use those stories from its history as a way to talk about some of the teachings of Sikhism. So here's our title. It's how can we use Guru Nanak's life story to show that he believed in equality. So Guru Nanak was the founder of Sikhism. That means the person who began the religion. So how can we use Guru Nanak's life story to show that he believed in equality? And what we're going to do, we're going to first look at what I mean by equality. We're then going to look at a little bit about the background of where Guru Nanak lived and why there perhaps wasn't equality at that time amongst all people. Then we'll look at his life story, and then we'll come back and link his life story to some of the things that Sikhs do today. If you go to a Sikh temple, or it's called a Gurdwara, you'll see certain things that they do which actually can be linked directly to Guru Nanak's life story. Okay, so this is on a video, so if you need to rewind to look at the title or pause or whatever you need to do, then you do that. What's equality then? Well, equality means treating all people equally and fairly. So can you make sure you write down that definition? It would also be good to write down the second definition, inequality. So before we get to inequality, so yeah, treating all people equally and fairly, that means treating everyone, no matter their background, their religion, their gender, their ethnicity or race, equally. Everyone's treated fairly, no matter who they are. So what's inequality? Well, inequality is the opposite of equality. It is when a group of people is treated unfairly. So, people who believe in equality will be people who stand up against inequality. So I've got some pictures here at the bottom. This is from a picture from the Premier League. No room for racism, it says. So it's about the campaign to get rid of racism from football, to make sure there's no racism in football. And you've probably seen, if you watch football, footballers taking the knee, kneeling down at the beginning of the games in the Premier League since it restarted, to show opposition to racism. Here it's a message on some steps. It says love, peace, no racism, no sexism, no violence, no homophobia. We've seen it. Racism obviously is inequality. Racism would be inequality against people because of their race, because of the color of their skin. Sexism would be inequality because of sex or gender. So inequality between men and women. And then homophobia will be inequality based on sexuality, based on which gender someone's attracted to. So those are forms of inequality, and Sikhism has got a strong emphasis on believing in equality between all people. Okay, make sure you got those definitions. Okay, so a little bit about how Sikhism began. So Sikhism was founded about 500 years ago in the Punjab region of northwest India. Now it's a bit confusing in that picture because it has Punjab in Pakistan. Well, 500 years ago there was no differentiation between the countries of India and Pakistan. It was kind of all one area. It was complicated how it was politically, but there certainly weren't those two countries, India and Pakistan. And today, actually, the Punjab is mainly in Pakistan, but it actually covers areas that are in India and in Pakistan now. But it was that area, the Punjab, which is a kind of area, not a country in itself, but an area within two countries today, where Sikhism began. That's where Guru Nanak lived. And at the time in the Punjab, there were two main religions, Hinduism and Islam. There's still many, Hinduism is today the biggest religion in India, and Islam is the biggest religion. Most number of people in Pakistan are Muslims who follow Islam. So those two religions are still the main religions in that area today, and they were when Guru Nanak was born. Okay, we're going to look at three ways in which there was inequality in the Punjab, in which people were treated unequally. And what I want you to do is write these three down and then draw a picture. I often do this task. Drawing a picture can often help to put these ideas in your head and keep them there. So, first one. As I've just said, there were two religions in the Punjab. And sometimes, not always, some Muslims and Hindus got on very well, but sometimes Muslims and Hindus didn't treat each other equally. Sometimes there was inequality based on what religion you were. So I've put the symbol of Islam there, which is the crescent moon and the star, and the symbol of Hinduism, which is called the Om symbol. And so I just want you to write down inequality between religions. That's the thing you're going to write down, and then draw some kind of picture to represent it. Maybe you could put just write the words religion versus religion, or maybe you could draw that picture there, the two things in opposition to each other. So yeah, it's important to say it wasn't all Muslims and Hindus, but in some cases Muslims and Hindus didn't get on well and didn't treat each other equally. And Guru Nanak noticed that while he was growing up. Okay, next kind of inequality is inequality between the rich and the poor. So some people in the Punjab were very rich and others were very poor, and often Guru Nanak found that rich people didn't treat poor people well. They refused to give them money to help them. They kept all their wealth for themselves and didn't help the poor. So again, I just want you to write down inequality between the rich and the poor and draw some kind of picture. My picture is not very good. It's just a sign that says rich and poor. Other people to me have done, one really big bag of money versus one small bag of money. However you want to draw it. Big pile of coins, small pile of coins. Just anything that keeps it in your head. So we've got inequality between religions and between rich and poor. The next one is a bit more complicated. It's something called the caste system. This was something that was part of Indian society at that time. So there was something called the caste system in India. What happened was society was divided into groups called castes. The caste you were born into told you the job you must do. So say if your parents were soldiers, you should be a soldier. If your parent was a merchant, that means they ran a business, you would run a business. If your parents worked on a farm, you worked on a farm. If your parents did one of the toughest jobs in society, which in those days were things like dealing with waste and cleaning out things like toilets and things like that, then you were supposed to do the same thing. That means there was no what we call social mobility. That means you couldn't be born into a poor family and work your way up into a rich family because you were supposed to stay in that job that your parents did. In the same way, if you were born into a rich family, you would just stay there. You would stay rich, no matter, even if you were really lazy, because you were you had the same job that your parents had. Now, it also, your caste was supposed to tell you the person that you got married to. So you were supposed to marry someone in the same caste as you. So yeah, and just a little bit about it. Here, the four main groups in the caste system were here. There were lots of castes actually, but there were four main kind of divisions in the caste system. At the top were the Brahmins, who were the top, and they were the priests of religion, and also scholars, people who studied religion. Second were called Kshatriyas, who were soldiers and warriors. Third were Vaishyas, who were merchants and professional people. So merchants means they owned a business. They bought and sold things. Sudras were the lowest. They were labourers and servants. So they did a hard manual work. So that was another way in which people were treated unequally, because it was thought that you can't, if you're from the bottom of society, you can't move up in the caste system. There's certain things that you're supposed to spend your time mostly with people of your own caste, and you can't marry someone in a different caste. There's a picture of a boy there, and you can see people of the higher castes wore this thing called a sacred thread. He's wearing it around his chest there. That is a sacred thread, which becomes important in Guru Nanak's story. It shows he's of a higher caste. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. That is the background to Guru Nanak. He lived in that society where there's all these different kinds of inequality, but Guru Nanak was someone who believed in equality. So what I want you to do is that there's two worksheets that there was one worksheet and there's one information sheet that you need. You need to read the information sheet first of all, and then the information sheet tells you about Guru Nanak's life. And then on the worksheet, there's a gap fill exercise. That means that you need to fill in the gaps to tell the story of Guru Nanak's life. And obviously the information to fill in the gaps will come from the information sheet. You then, on that worksheet, above each part of the life story, there's a picture. There's a space, and I want you to draw a picture there for Guru, to represent what happened in Guru Nanak's life. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 10 parts of his life story. We've divided it into 10 parts on the worksheet, and I just want you to write a picture for each one. So I want the space for the pictures is very small, so I don't want it to be really like a proper cartoon. I would just like you to put one image in each place that represents this. So for example, there's a place where he goes to bathe in a river. Just draw a river, you could, for that one. There's a place where he spends a lot of time traveling around India. Well, you could just draw the shape of India. You can look that up on the internet, see what shape India is, and maybe just draw a line wandering around India to show him moving around India. There's a bit where his father sends him into town with some money. Maybe just draw a bag of money. So that's the first thing I want you to do. Fill in the gaps and draw an image to represent each part of the story. Then the third part is not something to do in terms of writing, but it's just to think about. Throughout that story, you should be able to think and find parts of the story that show that Guru Nanak believed in inequality between different religions, particularly Hindu and Muslim, between rich and poor people, and between different castes, different people in the caste system. So what I want you to do now is pause the video and have a go at that worksheet. Before you pause the video, if you're not able to print out the worksheet, then all you'd need to do is read the worksheet online and just make sure that you know what would go in each gap. Then you can take a piece of blank paper, draw out the 10 boxes and draw the pictures for yourself. So just work out what goes in each gap in the gap fill and then draw the pictures yourself. But if you can, print out the worksheet. Okay, pause the video now and then we'll come back and we'll go through a little bit of the answers. Okay, you should have done that task. Let's go through some of the answers in here. So it says Nanak was born into a high caste family, but he refused to wear it should be sacred thread because he did not believe in the caste system. Second one, when Nanak was young, his father sent him into town with some money, but Nanak gave it all away to some holy men. It was a very common thing in Indian society at the time for there to be holy men who were kind of lived by being supported by other people. They didn't have their own money, so he thought it was important for them to live that life of a holy man, so he supported them. Nanak became an accountant. That's a job that he did. That's someone who deals with money, helps businesses with their money. Although he was a Hindu, he became friends with many of it's Muslims that he worked with. So there's something to show. We've already seen in the first one, believed in caste equality. In the third one, he believed in equality between religions. When he was about, what age was he? 30 years old, he went to bathe in the river and disappeared. For how long was he gone for? Was it 3 days? 3 days, yes. When he returned, he said, there is no Hindu or Muslim. He told people he'd been taken to see God. What does he mean there is no Muslim or Hindu or Muslim? Well, he doesn't mean that no Hindus or Muslims exist. What he means is, to God, it doesn't matter if someone's Hindu or Muslim. That's the idea in Sikhism. That's equality between religions. To God, it doesn't matter. He learned that what made someone a good person is not which religion they follow, but how they treat other people. So it's not whether you're this kind of religion or that kind of religion. And, Hindus and Muslims disagreed quite a lot about how you worship God. But he said it doesn't really matter. What matters is how you treat other people. Guru Nanak spent 20 years travelling around India and other parts of the world. He visited Hindu and Muslim holy cities, it could say. So places that were holy to both people, and told people that everyone is equal to God. I should say, when I say equal to God, it doesn't mean that human beings are equal to the same as God. It means that in the eyes of God, it perhaps is a better way of saying it, I don't know. Every time I've tried to phrase that bit in the worksheet, it's been unclear to people, but that's the easiest I can get it. So in God's eyes, everyone's equal no matter what religion. Nanak came back to the Punjab and set up a village. So he set up a village where his followers could live. They became known as Sikhs. That's where the name comes from. Nanak was invited to eat at many people's houses. That was something they used to do with famous religious teachers at that time, come to invite them to people's houses. He chose to eat with a poor man called Lalo rather than with a rich man called Malik Bago, because Lalo was... What was Lalo? Was hard working. hardworking, while Malik Bago was greedy. So that was the bit I think that shows most he doesn't believe in the difference between rich and poor. In those times it would have been a great honour to be invited to eat at a rich person's house, and it would be seen as not good for your image, or kind of a bit lowly to go and eat with a poor person at that time, because there was such an idea of inequality. But Guru Nanak wanted to show that he didn't believe in that. He went to eat with Lalo. Okay, we should have filled in our worksheet. And remember, if you haven't got your pictures, make sure you do your pictures. That's part of the work. So, pause this video and go and do your pictures if you haven't done them. The whole idea is to pause the video while you're doing your work. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about is something called the Langar. Now, this is where we're going to kind of bring the story up to date, because the Langar is something that Guru Nanak started and still exists today in Sikh temples, or Gurdwaras as they're called. In a Sikh temple, we'll call it a Sikh temple because we'll come on to the name Gurdwara and what that means when we get to a future lesson. So let's just call it a Sikh temple for now, because it's easier to understand for you guys. So in the Sikh temple, every Sikh temple there is a thing called a Langar, and a Langar is a place where food is served to people, free food. So anyone can come, and every day food is served to everyone. There's a picture of there's people there sitting down, and they're all being served food. Now here are some of the things that are true about the Langar. All the food is vegetarian, so that people of all religions can eat. See, some religions have dietary requirements, and some religions, for example, some forms of Hinduism, not all, but some, say you must be a vegetarian. In Islam, there's certain foods like pork that you can't eat. So the idea would be, if all the food is vegetarian, that means it's okay for everyone. Everyone can eat them. So all the food is vegetarian. It's free, so that anyone, rich or poor, can afford to come. So can you see how it's showing these kind of equalities? Equality between all religions, vegetarian food. Equality between rich and poor, it's free, so all people can come. And everyone sits on the floor to show that no one is higher than anyone else. One of the big things in the caste system was that people of a higher caste would not sit down and eat with people of a lower caste. Here, the idea is everyone's on the floor, they all sit on the floor, which would have been, that was more common than to sit on the floor than to have chairs. But the idea of sitting on the floor is that we're all on the same level, everyone's equal. So again, that everyone sitting on the floor can show equality between people of different castes, and of course it can show equality between rich and poor as well, and religions. That one can show all those kinds of equality. So you can see how there's a direct line from what happened in Guru Nanak's life to this. So the last task I want you to do is to pick one of the characteristics of the Langar that we've just talked about. So it could be the vegetarian food, it could be that it's free, or it could be that everyone sits on the floor. And then I want you to link it to something in Guru Nanak's life. I've done one characteristic of the Langar, so I want you to pick another one. So here's how I've done it. I'm going to talk you through how I've done it. I've put in the Langar, vegetarian food is served so that people of all religions are able to eat there. This shows, so that's my second part. So I've said what happens. Then I've said what kind of equality this is. This shows that Sikhs believe in equality between religions, so all religions can eat there. Now I'm going to talk about part of Guru Nanak's life. One part of Guru Nanak's life that we can link to this is when he returned from meeting God and said, there is no Hindu or Muslim. Then I'm going to explain, in the purple, I'm explaining, well, how is that thing linked to equality in religions? This shows that he thought that Hindu and Muslim people were equal in the eyes of God. So you can see how I've done it. I've done 4 sentences, and I think I'd like you to do the same. I've done the first one. I've talked about something in the Langar. So you might want to talk about something else. You might say in the Langar, everyone sits on the floor on the same level. Then I've talked about in the second sentence what kind of equality this shows. Well, you could say in the second one, this shows equality between all caste groups, because people of all different castes have to sit on the same level. Then I've linked it to part of his life story. I've linked it to this thing, there's no Muslim or Hindu. You might talk about how you link it to, this links to Guru Nanak when he refused to wear the sacred thread. And then I've explained why did that thing in his life story mean he believed in that kind of equality. So I've said, this means that he said that in the eyes of God, all Muslims and Hindus are equal. So you might say This shows that he thought there should be no difference between different peoples of different castes, because the sacred thread showed that you were of a higher caste background. So all I want you to do is follow that structure and try to write out a short paragraph saying one thing about the Langar, something different to what I've picked. What kind of equality does it show? What part of Guru Nanak's life can we link it to? And why did that part of Guru Nanak's life show the same kind of equality? Hope that makes sense. That's your last task. Do send me a message if there's anything you're unclear about. Even though you're doing this on a video, I am here in front of the computer on Teams, so just get in touch. Okay, thank you.